I'm there thinking it's either now I figure out how to get paid or mom dies. What if mom didn't have to die for me to get a client? What changed? I didn't get a new coach. I didn't get anything new. I just got a deadline. Go out there, find someone who has a problem. I knew the money is as a result of solving a problem. Entrepreneurship takes a level of madness. You have to want this freedom so much that you're willing to suffer for it. I want you to imagine you're smelling like a flame. Turn around and your curtain's on fire. I bet you look outside your house and there's a homeless guy and they have a fire extinguisher, you're taking that thing. Be the person that is holding the fire extinguisher when people's houses are on fire, because no one cares then what your name is and how many subscribers you have. If you are in front of someone whose house is on fire, you don't need to sell, you don't need to market, you just have to be there. What is success? Because people were excited to go for the bigger jobs and the promotions, but I wasn't. Success is doing.
So, Prima, thank you for coming on our podcast. You faced a pivotal moment when your mother urgently needed $2,000 for medical treatment. Could you walk us through that experience? What changed inside you during those 72 hours that permanently transformed your approach to business?
I like to answer that question backwards. My journey began way when I was like 13, 14, something there. And my dad made it very clear for us that he had a code for success for us. And dad's code was, your job is to study hard, get good grades, become a doctor, become an engineer, become a lawyer. When you do those things, what is going to happen is you're going to get a good job, you're going to get in a good company, get a good man, raise kids, have a decent family, and that is a life well lived. You can pay your bills, you have a good man, you have good kids. And I was supposed to go to school and become those things, and I did. But as I started to become those things, I was like, really? Like, do I really want to be these things? Do I want to be a doctor? Like, no. Like, do I want to be cutting people's? I was like, doctor? Like, no, I don't want to be cutting nobody's body. And then I was like, okay, lawyer? Like, really? Like, do I want to be a lawyer? Like, no. Somehow the engineer bit seemed doable. So I was like, okay, cool, I'll be an engineer. So I started becoming an engineer. And first of all, an electric engineer. And I started to really climb poles, and I was like, really? Like, do I really want to be climbing these poles? And I remember when I finished, I got a job in telecom. I later on studied computer science and got a job in telecom. And as everyone else was climbing the ladders, I didn't want to climb any ladders. I got a promotion and another one, and I was like really? I'd work for 12 months and then I would have like, I don't know, 2% increase in salary. And I'm like, okay. So assuming I die at, who knows, 70, like how much money impact will I have made in that time? I woke up every day, did the same thing over and over. And I was like, no, this doesn't seem right. And so I began to think through like, what? What was this supposed like what is success? Because people were excited to go for the bigger jobs and the promotions, but I wasn't. Like inside me, I lost the morale, the gas, the desire to climb the ladder. And I was like, so what's going to happen to me? And I remember at 25, I said, I'm done with this life. Like, I don't want to be this thing. I was literally living my dad's life, like a photocopy of my dad. And I was like, I don't want this life. My dad cannot live twice. He has to live his life, and that has to be enough. So I said, Prima, what is success to you? And I remember answering that question like, success is doing things on my terms, life, business, on my terms. And I was like, Prima, this is not your success. And my mom used to be a business person, and I loved business, but I didn't think that I had permission to build a business because I wasn't allowed. My dad didn't think it was success. And so at 25, I left and started a business. That was a bricks and mortar, which came crashing down in 2020 due to COVID. So then after COVID, I had to come online. I didn't want to get a job. I didn't know in Uganda, like, what am I supposed to do? Everything was manual, physical, give me the money, give like there wasn't this online kind of thing. And so I was like, okay, I see people doing things on Facebook. I see Tony Robbins, I see Grant Cardone, I see Oprah. These people are doing something and they seem to be speaking to people virtually. I want to do this thing. And I had no idea. But anyway, I started. I started writing, I started studying, I started looking at what people were selling, and I started growing slowly. But I didn't really understand like how to make money. I knew to share my lessons. People liked the things I shared. They commented. They were like, "Okay, Africa, tell us more about Uganda." But I didn't know like how does that translate to money. So I remember 9 months later, my mom got COVID, and my brother is a doctor. Like all my family, by the way, they're medics. Like no one drifted from dad's wishes. They're all medics, apart from like two people. My brother, who's a doctor, says, "You guys, if we do not raise like real money, mom is gonna die." He starts to distribute how much everyone is supposed to bring, and I'm supposed to bring 2 grand. I'm like, 2 grand? That's like 8 million. I'm like, who's supposed to give me 8 million for what? And I'm there thinking, it's either now I figure out how to get paid or mom dies. I was building a personal brand, post content, write about yourself, tell your stories, and all the things. But I didn't know how to get someone to pay me. And I remember sitting there in my little box. I had 72 hours to make this thing work. And I wasn't somehow willing to live with the fact that mom died and I could have saved her. So I was like, okay, I have to figure out how to get paid. And long story short, at the end of these 72 hours, I had made 2K. That was after 9 months. And I was like, I could do this again. What if mom didn't have to die for me to get a client? And I started to think, like, do we make getting paid harder than it has to be? What changed? I didn't get a new coach. I didn't get anything new. I just got a deadline and I got 2 grand in the door. So what did I do that I wasn't doing before? And slowly by slowly, brick by brick, I've now helped over 100 clients. The system is now called building a tiny, self sustaining power brand. A brand which pays your bills and serves your people as you build the big brand that is a legacy or whatever the thing we are building. And so, through that struggle and a lot of trials and errors, I think that for me, I have learned to focus on if we're trying to build this thing called a brand, and somehow along the way, we don't find out how to make this thing work for us, things are going to get complicated. The mental game is going to give way. And we may not live long enough to see the brand that was assigned to our name. Because some brands will take 5 years, others will take 10 years, or will take 25 years. The question I want to give whoever's listening is if you had 25 years for your brand to come to life, will you have the mental and financial runway to keep going? If the answer is no, then today's conversation is going to be very helpful for you because I really plan to dive in and talk about the beats of getting paid now as you build that runway that everyone is trying to build. That's your long answer for the short question that you asked.
Prima, your story is it's so inspiring, and it's probably something that so many people can resonate with, that we want something because money is a very broad thing. We all want money. It'd be nice to earn some money, but when something happens where it's life or death, all of a sudden what we've been doing for 9 months, a year, many years in a lot of people's cases, we figure it out because we have to. And that's exactly what you did. And amazing that it took you 72 hours to work out something that had taken you 9 months to try and figure out. What did change? What practically changed in that time? What did you do differently?
Other than collapsing and waking up and I'm like half dead and I don't know what to do from panic. For the first day, I like just froze, like she's gonna die. And all my family were panicking. Everyone's nervous system collapsed. And after one day, I was like, okay, we can all just die like this. Maybe it won't just be mom dying, we'll all die. Oh, one of us can actually rise and do something. And I was like, you know what? You're going to be the person who saved her. Get out of yourself, get out of your head, go out there, find someone who has a problem. I knew that money is as a result of solving a problem. So I just needed to find someone who had a problem they were tired of and that they wanted to get rid of. I thought to myself, in that moment, my house was on fire and I needed to save my mom. And I would have done anything to save my mom. Anything. I would have given anything to save her life. Any money that I had. So I had to think like, is there anyone in this world who would give away $2,000 to solve a problem, or $500? If I can find 5 people each to give me $500 for a problem they are tired of, for their house which is on fire, which they can literally like calm down, I think I'll make money. Who in this planet has a problem that they will be willing to spend $500 on? That was my thought process. If I can solve a problem that is at least $500, I'd look for 5 people. If I can solve a problem that is worth $2,000, I would need one person. The bigger the problem I can solve, the quicker I can get this money. And I didn't know like how. So what I did is then I went to my Facebook feed. I had a small Facebook group of like 100 people. That was my audience size. And Facebook said, these are your top fans. I was like, I have fans? Interesting. Like, I have fans. Okay. So I was like, what is a fan? I started to Google, like, who's a fan? The people who like what you say. I'm like, okay, these people are my fans. They are my top fans. They like what I say. I think they'll be willing to talk to me on Zoom. So I like, okay, this is the first one, the top one. This is the second one. This is the third one. Okay. If I get these people and sit with them, who knows? Maybe one of them has a problem and they like me enough to give me money to solve it. I was like, I have no idea. At this point, I have nothing to lose. So I go the first one and I was like, hey, I'm trying to talk to the people who really love my work and I see that you're one of them. Would you like to talk to me on Zoom? And she's like, send me the link. And I'm like, okay. Someone actually wants to talk to me. I was like, okay, this is interesting. So I sit with her and I'm like, tell me what you do. And she starts to tell me what she does. She did network marketing. Her product was $5,000. Then I'm like, okay, how is the business? And she's like, it's really bad. But as she was explaining to me, I could see like why she wasn't selling. Because offline, my business was like selling, marketing my stuff. I did like fashion. So that was a bit, I understood like how to sell something, how to unpack things, how to get people to buy. And she was speaking about her product. I was like, is anyone buying this thing? So I asked her, like, how is the business going? And she's like, not so good. And I'm like, how bad? She's like, no one has paid me so far. And I'm like, that's interesting because I think you have a great product. It was a 5K product. I'm like, can you sell it to me? And she's like, okay. And she starts to share her screen and go through a PowerPoint. And I'm like, in my head, I'm sleeping. I'm like, okay, no one is buying this thing. Like, no one is buying this thing. So I understand what she's selling. I could sell it better and it wasn't even my product. I'm like, oh, so people can pay for this ability to sell things. I'm like, interesting. Because she was struggling and for me, I drank that for water. Like, if a product was good, I didn't have a problem selling it. So I was like, would you mind if I tried to like sell you the product and you can kind of see? She's like, sure. So I got the product and I'm like, well, if I was to sell you this product, I wouldn't sell the product. I would sell something else. So she was selling like, I can't remember what it was, but I didn't sell that. I was like, people don't want to buy that thing. People want what that thing brings them. People want the feeling. People, like, I turned out the product and started to sell. Like, you know how you can sell like water, I don't know water for how much, and then someone else sells you longevity and sovereignty of your life. And like I turned around and started to sell the identity of what people become when they buy the product. So instead of saying I am a yoga teacher and I teach you how to do yoga, turning that around and saying I help you get rid of your anxiety so you can have all these things or this life and stuff like that. And it was like, you know what? I feel like buying this product again. And I'm like, you do? And she's like, yeah, you're so good at selling this. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, am I? Blind me. And she turns around. What comes out of her mouth is, do you offer coaching? I wasn't a coach. I had no idea what coaching was. I had no idea what coaching cost. I had no program. And I was like, huh, you better be kidding me. I looked at her straight in the face and I said, yes. And she said, how much is your coaching? And I said, 2,000. I didn't blink. I kept looking at her. And in my head, I had no idea what she was going to say. And like, I had nothing to lose. Like, I was already roasted properly down. She looks at me and says, do you take PayPal? And friends, that's how I became a coach. That's how I started. That was my first $2,000. And now we're here, multiple 6 figures. That moment was the start of everything.
That's an amazing story. I love that. I think many of us can relate on the reason to kind of get over any uncertainty or procrastination or imposter syndrome and just dive in once the temperature gets hot enough and you have to act. Thank you for sharing that with us. You mentioned focusing on fire extinguishers rather than bucket list offers. Could you unpack what that means, to offer urgent, valuable, irresistible offers versus ones that are nice to have?
That's a topic that is bringing a lot of discussions in my world. So when I launched House on Fire offers, I said, I want everyone to imagine I'm going to explain this, but I know someone is going to say, no, Prima, I don't want to market to that. And then I'm going to give you that version and I'm going to give you another version. So I want you to imagine that you're in your house and you're mindlessly scrolling on TikTok. My husband does that all the time. He just gets the phone, mindlessly scrolls through TikTok. And I'm like, dude, what are you watching? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, you're watching the thing. He has no idea what he's watching. And as you're doing that, I want you to imagine you're smelling like a flame. You turn around and your curtain's on fire. Like, not just fire, angry fire. They're burning up. And you're thinking, geez, this fire needs to get out. Who has a fire extinguisher? Are you going to say, I am going to go on Instagram, I wonder who has the most followers and who's been posting every day and who's been giving, I wonder which is the most credible company. No way. Your curtains are blazing, your feet are catching fire. There's no time. In that moment, I bet you look outside your house and there's a homeless guy, you don't know their name or anything, and they have a fire extinguisher, you're taking that thing. So what I use that to explain is that in the marketplace, people have houses on fire. And you can help them with that to get in the door, or you can keep talking to the nice to have, the bucket list things, and getting passed on. What I realize is that over the last 5 years, trust has gone down. People have promised things, they've not delivered on them. Everyone can claim to be anything. If you're rich in the coaching industry, there's even no bar of entry. I've actually like quitting coaching and I'm like, you know what? I'm now just a mentor. Anyone can throw up a Canva logo and say I'm a coach. So people have no idea who is lying, who is telling the truth, who should I follow, who shouldn't I. People have lost money. And I feel like people now have a filter that says, who are you, before I even care. And if they can't answer the question, who are you, they're gone. But there is a way, as a best kept secret, how you can bypass that filter. And that is if you're the person holding the fire extinguisher when my house is blazing. And so I use that concept to explain in the marketplace that if no one knows you, or if you think you're obscure enough, be the person that is holding the fire extinguisher when people's houses are on fire, because no one cares then what your name is and how many subscribers you have. Once you're in the door, now the process also allows you to make a demonstration or spend time with the person so you can build the trust. Once you're in the door, hopefully you do a good job. The fire is out. Once the fire is out, Becky looks at you and says, hey, Prima, nice to meet you. I'm so sorry I didn't even get to know you better. I was in such a panic. What do you do? Where are you from? And now you sit down and explain to Becky who are you from and give her an opportunity to even spend more time with you so you can show her what you can do for her. Now you can talk about the proofing and all the things you have to help her secure her house. So now you're actually inside the door and you can build all the trust that you want. But if you keep talking about the burglar proofing and Becky's like, burglar proofing? Who are you? How long have you been in business? Who is your insurance? You're not going to get in the door because she's looking for the person who's done burglar proofing for the last 100 years. But I, Prima, I'm not even 100. I'm not even 50. How am I going to get a chance if Becky's going to get her books and balance and sees me up every time? So that's the house on fire concept. That if you can show up in a moment when people are tired of their problem and they cannot sweep it under the rug anymore, you get hired. But I feel like the concept of solving a problem has become so vanilla that people are solving vanilla problems. Like, find a problem, solve it. But like, what kind of problem are you solving? I feel like people don't understand what problem gets you in the door in a noisy marketplace. And so I use that concept to explain that. But there's also people who say, Prima, I don't want to speak to the pain. Okay, don't speak to the pain. But a house on fire moment does not have to be a painful moment. I look at a house on fire moment also as a moment when divine God, universe, whoever you listen to says, you know what, Prima? Today is the day you work on your trauma. When finally a marriage ends. And God divine is saying, Prima, you know what? That trauma, it needs to be worked on right now. When finally that promotion you've been asking for lands, and you're like, oh my God, I don't even know what to do. You said, David, today is the day that you learn how to be a senior manager. Now you're ready, David, go. Suddenly, what? Your hair is on flames, you're looking for whatever coach you can get. It does not have to be ugly. You can be there praying and asking whoever you believe in, I want to get on a stage. I want to be a keynote speaker, whatever the thing is. You've not written the thing, you've been praying for it, and suddenly you get allowed to be on a stage of 1 million people. That's a house on fire. It does not have to be all ugly. It does not have to be all rock bottom. A house on fire is simply an activation moment when divine God, universe, decides and says, Prima, today is the day. You cannot wait anymore. We're opening this door, ready or not, go. So I just wanted to explain that because there's people who say, I don't want to speak to the pain, but you just need to speak to the right moment. When the thing you're trying to give people is their top priority. You all have things you're going to do this year. Some things are down your priority list, some things are on the top. How did the guy on the top get to the top? So if you're in the marketplace today and you're wondering why people are not hiring you, think, how can I get to be the top of their list? How can I be the priority they're working with right now? Because if you can't find that moment, you may struggle to penetrate the market or get in people's doors.
Absolutely. Prima, I'm so with you. So my background's in sales training. So, and I'm so with you on everything that you're saying. I always make the analogy, and yours is better with the fire. I always make the analogy with, if you had, it's back in the days where we lived in caves, if a bear is in the mouth of the cave right now, you would probably do something about it right now. You're not going to go, wait there, Mr. Bear, let me think about my options, right? You're going to go run, fight, cry. I would cry, whatever it is, we're going to do something right away. If we know the bear's a couple of miles away, it's in the vicinity, it might come this way, it might not. If it does, we've got a little while. We still might do something, but it's not as urgent. And I think what a lot of people do is they sell to the third option, which is, wouldn't this be cool? Right? The bucket list thing. Wouldn't this be a nice thing to have? And yeah, you might. I always make the analogy of, if you're eating strawberries, they're okay. They're not the worst, they're not the best, they're okay. And somebody says to you, 5-mile walk up that hill, best strawberries you've ever had in your life. You might be like, okay, maybe tomorrow. Maybe right now, maybe never. There's not that urgency. So I love that thing of, it's not just the problem, it's how urgent is it? How much is on fire? Is it the house down the street, or is it your hair? I love that as an analogy.
I picked up something as you were speaking. We definitely want these things. I was giving a joke the other day that my husband and I want to go to the Maldives. We're dead on this, dead flat on the surface. We want to go to the Maldives someday. And every time we see the ads and the places, we're like, oh, this will be our place in Maldives. Who knows how many years it will take us until we go to the Maldives? We've been lamenting about that since we met, and we've been around together for 4 years. So imagine if your business was relying on a couple of people who are thinking like us. We want to go, we have the desire, but I don't know, it's not like a now thing. And the other thing that I like to say is, these days people say, I want to show you how to manifest millions, and I want to show you how to change your life and unleash your potential. I'm like, okay, but when I want to unleash my potential, then the stakes are a little bit counted, because I'm going to say, Tony Robbins, who are the guys who have 1,000% of this thing. If I'm going to buy a nice to have thing, which people buy because I buy them, but when I'm buying those kind of things, I am very, very picky with where I buy it. And you might be a nice person and you might be anointed, and I won't buy it from you. If I want to manifest millions, I guarantee you my eyes are on a guy who's making at least 10 million or 100 million. Now, you might know how to manifest millions, but if you start to show people how to manifest millions, you're competing with the guy who's doing 100 million right now. And that can be a tight battle. Because people are it's not urgent. I can take my time. I can make the research. And I want to pay the person who 100% is not a risk. And I don't want to take the time to investigate you and know if you're real or not. If you can, I don't want to spend the time. The brain work, I'm not going to do it. But if you come and my thing is like urgent, I don't really, it's okay. You can be the worst person at that thing and I'll give you a chance because I just want that thing right now. And if you can find a very friendly entry point, which doesn't stretch my pocket so much, now you're in the door. Before I know it, you're my trusted advisor. I like to give an example of my husband. When my husband met me, I was just on Facebook doing my thing. In Uganda, I wasn't even looking for men. I was just doing my thing. Like I'm on this podcast doing my thing. So I wrote a post about my story and my rock bottom moments. I remember there was a time when I was so broke, I couldn't buy toilet paper. I would go to the supermarket. I remember that moment I went to the supermarket, and for 30 minutes, I was like comparing the cents. Which one is the lowest? It was so bad. And I shared that moment in a video, and I said, you guys, I don't know. But until my mom was dying, I didn't figure out this monetization thing. And I was telling them that there was a point where I couldn't buy toilet paper, and that wasn't enough to push me. And I was trying to explain to them that you need to get to a point where you just have to do it. My husband saw my post and he joined my program. At the end of the session, I'm like, there's more ability to work with me closer, but it's $6,000. If you'd like to see the details, message me. And I hop off. And he messages me and he says, can I buy the offer? And I'm like, sure. Let me send you the details. And he's like, no, just send me the link. It occurred to me later that for him, his house was on fire for a wife, and I didn't know that. When he saw me, he was like, that's my wife. How do I get in? And he knew that he wasn't going to get in my life looking on the sides. So he knew that $6,000 was his entry ticket into my world. And today we've been married for 3 years. We've known each other for 4. And so I share this story to say that when your house is on fire, it doesn't matter what things cost sometimes. He didn't even care what I was selling him. He wired me $6,000. Why? Because his house was on fire. And as I hear him telling the story now, I can tell how badly his house was burning. Because he had spent 5 years looking for a wife, not seen one. He saw me, was like, this is my wife. I will not risk losing her. And he just dived in. So if you are in front of someone whose house is on fire, you don't need to sell, you don't need to market. You just have to be there with the right product, and you're in the door. And in today's market, being in the door is more important than having followers and having likes and being known and being pretty and all those things. Just get yourself in the door.
That's a very expensive first date, Prima.
There was no date. We dated on Zoom, and then before I know it, I had cut the story short. Before I knew it, within less than 3 months, Matt was on the plane to Uganda. I remember asking him, how long are you going to stay for? And he was like, forever. And I'm like, what? I had known him for like 2 months. It's like, I'm not coming back. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, I'm going to come there. I'm going to take a hotel which is closest to you. I just want to be there whenever you need help. I just want to be there in Uganda so that you see me. There's no rush. Take your time. If you ever feel like you're ready for this, I know I want a wife in you. You're my wife. I know that. No pressure. And I was like, in my head, I was like, holy cow. But it was very funny because I wasn't scared of it. And I was tired of guys who didn't have direction and didn't know where they were taking me. I was tired of the guy saying, I like you, let's go for a date. But on the date, he had no plan. Like, what's the plan? He has no idea. And I'm like, don't waste my time. Matt had like an idea, a plan, and he saw everything he wanted. And he put it on the table, and I was like, this guy I like. And now we're married.
Congratulations.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned, I think, very wisely that, and it's kind of like pure entrepreneurship: find a problem, solve it, and get paid. And in your case, you looked at your fans on Facebook and you very organically, like you looked around and started with curiosity. Like, what is a fan? What do my fans need? Okay, that's a problem. Oh, they need something called a coach. What's a coach? Okay, I'm a coach. And kind of, building your way up that way. How would you recommend other people find houses on fire? Like if they don't know yet what their product is, how do they find? Would they do the same thing you did, or have at this point? Do you have some other recommendations for them?
I actually have a whole Google Doc full of like house on fire per industry. So we can link. I think the easiest way to do it is if they can ask to join my community, then they can either put Horizon in like when they enter, because I asked them like, where did you see me? And then we can give them the doc. Like inside one of my paired votes is like house on fire by industry. What is the pain point in your industry that you can begin to speak to that would get people, the right people, moving forward? But if you do not know, like ask yourself, what's the thing in your industry that people cannot spend another day without solving? Like, what is the thing that cannot be swept under the rug any day longer? If a woman is pregnant, you can't drag that around. Like, the baby needs to come out, it will come out, the doctor has to be paid whether you like it or not. So if you have a baby on the way, whether you have money or not is no one's problem. Like, the money is going to show up for the baby to be born. So ask yourself, like, what's the problem that people cannot put under the table, under the rug anymore? Most people sell vitamins, but what's the painkiller that people need? We all know we need vitamin C. We all know we need all those things. But how many of us are buying them? How many of us are buying them? But if I am paining, if I've cut myself, a painkiller comes handy. If I have a headache, a painkiller comes handy. So think, what is the painkiller that I can sell today, instead of thinking, what is a vitamin that I can sell today? Because people are not stopping to pick up vitamins from strangers or from people they don't know. So if you want to know how to think, just think, what is the thing that my audience cannot sweep under the rug anymore, and start saying, I have that thing. Or simply click on the link going to my school community and then get the doc, which gives you like all the industries and house on fire moments, and begin to maybe think guided by that. If you need like a spark and how you think, just get it and kind of look. Chances are your industry will be there, but if it's not, it'll be a good way to think and activate your head and go, yeah, now I can see my own fire in my own industry. You don't have to solve house on fire industry problems forever, but they're very, very good for getting in the door. And once you're in the door, you can expand your territory and you can solve all the problems. But until you're in the door, it's like you can't buy a house looking on the outside, really. You can't. You need to get in the door, and then people will understand your amazingness once you're in the door. I would never know Matt if he had been a random guy on the internet messaging me. He got on the inside, cost him $6,000, but he got on the inside. Then now I had the chance to see the nice guy, and now the nice guy is my husband. And so I never went shopping for the man, by the way. I didn't.
Never know. You mentioned that you deviated from the script in your family. Everyone went into medicine and you didn't want to go that route. And then you went into sales and entrepreneurship, etc. Now looks like you've been a success in every way. Has your family kind of come around? Can you talk a little bit about that relationship? You kind of, do they have more openness now to entrepreneurship?
My dad was the hardest one because he was like my best friend. And I even never got the courage to tell him that I shifted gears. So when I started my own business, I would go home, park my car, bring out the gifts. You know, a dollar is the same color, whether you're doing business or in a job, or like a dollar is a dollar. So I would park my car, bring out the gifts, and I would look at dad, and he was so proud of us. engineers, doctors. This dream he's created. And I would say, Dad, is now the day I break your heart? And I just didn't do it. Every Christmas I would look at Dad and he would be so happy. And I'm like, I'm not spoiling this for you. So by the time Dad died, I didn't tell him. He didn't know. But my mom knew that I left the job. My dad, I didn't face him. My family, as in my brothers and sisters, they didn't have much to say. But when I started Facebook, it was tough because what they saw is that I had traded a 6-figure business to Facebook. Like, it was crazy. Like, how can you throw away a business that is making you 6 figures every year and start being on Facebook? One of my brother-in-laws says, Prim, I still don't understand how you left MTN Uganda and went on Zoom. Like, how is Zoom going? And I'm like, Alex, I'm fine. So they don't understand it. They didn't understand it. And it was worse when I wasn't making money because they were like, geez, is this midlife crisis? What is happening? They started praying. They started trying to cancel me, and I blocked everyone. Because there was a time when I had to sell everything in my house to pay coaches. I was in programs that cost 20K, and 20K is like 95M in my money, and I didn't have that money. I had to sell everything in my house, and I started to avoid my family. I started to tell them I'm not there. I started to block them. But then it's funny because when I started to make money, then they were like, there is this thing we need to pay for, and I'll be like, I do it. I'm like, what? Like, I do it. And something else would show up, and someone would be like, I'll give $20, and another would say, I'll give $50, and then I'll say, I'll give you 1,000. They'll be like, okay. So they began to appreciate how much return comes from not knowing what I do. And they were like, I don't know what she does, but she sure can pay the bills, and I don't care what she does anymore. And then I met Matt, and everyone met Matt and fell in love with Matt. To the extent that when Matt was home, people were beginning to say, when is the wedding? And I hadn't made up my mind. I hadn't known Matt for 6 months, and my family were already like, when is the wedding? And I'm like, oops. Everybody slow down. Everyone fell in love with Matt, and everyone cannot imagine that Matt came out of my gump on Facebook. And so I think it's been decisions and decisions and decisions and a series of decisions that they're like, oh, well, whatever she does, she seems to have figured it out, and she seems to be better than most people who are not doing what she does. So do I need to understand it? Maybe not. If she can pay her bills and she shows up when I can't and can chip in when I can't, I have no problem with her. So I think the money helps. People may not understand what you do, but if the bills can get paid, I think there is a lot of, I don't know what it is, but there is a lot of, I don't know. People like just learn to accept it if you're not like dying and striving to pay your bills and stuff like that. So, I think that now they don't know what I do still, but they're more accepting of it, and they're fine.
I think there's such a strength in that. The idea of surrounding ourselves with, they say, 4 or 5 people that are people that we aspire to be, the types of people that we want to be like. But if everybody around us, which for most people are not entrepreneurs, if everybody around us is not entrepreneurial and they follow that more traditional path, if that suits them, of lawyer, doctor, engineer, and that's their world, it can be hard for them to understand entrepreneurship, but it can also be hard, I'm sure it was hard for you, to think differently to what you were around and to take that bold step, to take that risk of stepping outside of your comfort zone to be able to push into that. What helped you navigate that comfort zone feeling?
I don't know that I care so much what people think or not think of me. I don't care. I don't know that I care so much to be liked. I don't think that I care so much for people to believe me. I think that somehow there is something in me that says you'll be fine. You'll be fine. And I wasn't married. So I didn't have like that proximity with someone to see you every day and nag at you. I was living by myself, and I would see my family when I want to. And in those toughest moments, I just see nobody. I think for me, what helped me was the ability to just isolate myself and cut off everyone and say, you know what? There was something inside me that just couldn't settle. And I had tried the life, I tried the corporate life. I'd done it for 6 years. I had all the opportunities. MTN is like a $3 billion company. And I saw myself miserable there. I knew that my soul would just crash there. The opportunities were there. I could have climbed the ladders and ladders and ladders. I reached a point and I just said, Prima, no, this is not it. And so I took 6 years doing something that I knew wasn't the path, but I was like, how will I face dad? How will I feed? How will I make sure that I'm not begging anybody for money? And for me, after 6 years, I think I had had like enough sit down moments, and I had decided to go all in. I think that for me, the way I'm wired is I either do something or nothing at all. And if I choose to do something, I'm going to do it 100%. So for me, I think that that helped. But also, I didn't, because I knew starting the job that maybe it wasn't the job. I knew in the first year that I didn't want to stay there. I knew like every year, I just look at dad and go, dude, you're so happy. But if I tell you what's in my head, you kill me. I'd look at dad and go, dude, I want to leave the job. But he would be so happy. And I'd be like, I can't spoil that grin on his face. And 6 years later, I turned 25 and I said, Prima, if you don't do anything about this is going to be your life. Can you live the rest of your life like this? And I was like, no. It wasn't the price I was willing to pay. So for me, before I pulled the trigger, I think that I had enough time to know that it wasn't the path for me. And I gave it time. 6 years later, I was like, you know what, Prima, this is it. This is it. Quit.
So it came to a point where your house was on fire.
It reached a point. My house wasn't on fire properly. I got a new manager. I had been there for 6 years. I didn't want to be promoted. So I said no to the thing. They said, Prima, you gotta be a supervisor for this. I said, no, I'm not supervising nobody. And they brought a supervisor. The problem with this supervisor is she didn't know the job. She didn't know how to do the job. She didn't know how to monitor the nodes. And I was like, okay. So they brought this person, and I was like, okay. So we had to like teach her what we do, which wasn't bad enough. There was a point where she began to micromanage me, and that wasn't funny. Because I would log in and somehow I would listen to Tony Robbins in my ears and Oprah and all those people and Lewis House. I used to follow the podcast for Lewis House. And that kept me going. Like, you know what? There is this thing over here, which I think that I will do at some point as I do this thing. I was like, how do I start this thing? I didn't know. And one day she comes and says, Prim, I noticed that you're listening to things that are outside of the job scope. And I'm like, so? She's like, I'm going to ask you to turn that off. I look at her and I'm like, no, thanks. That moment was the moment when I realized that I was deceiving myself. She was like, I'm going to go and report this thing here. I'm going to take it to senior management and for disobedience. And I was like, in my head, I was like, this is not going to work, is it? So I went back home. I wrote the resignation letter. The next day, I came in the office. I went to the boss and I said, I am told that I'm on your desk. But anyway, I'm your desk too because I'm leaving. That was it. I don't know how, but she helped me to do that thing that I wanted to do for long because I had that letter and I was like, today's the day I send it. I was like, no, one other day, one more day, one more day. And that day I was like, no, forget it. I hit send and it went. So I guess it wasn't a house on fire until that day when I realized that I wasn't trusted to do the very job that I had excelled at for 6 years. And there was this person now who was micromanaging me. That didn't somehow register well for me. And I was like, okay, this is the day. I'm going. Like, this is it. My house is on fire. I'm out of here.
It's interesting you said that ultimately it's something and someone to be grateful for, right? She gave you that push that you needed to take the steps that you did. So
She really gave me a chance to get out of my own way because I had written that letter. It had been there for a year. So I'm going to send a thing. Nope, didn't send. It wasn't my draft. Didn't send. And that day I was like angry. I pressed send and I sent the thing.
It's interesting with these different emotions we have, and we might have different relationships with them. Like you mentioned anger, and myself, I think many people they don't know how to feel about anger. Like anger is a bad thing, it's something to be avoided, but it's really just energy. And you need to, I think, find some sort of, I don't know, balance for lack of a better word, that works for you to have agency and to grow and to reach your potential. Sometimes that could be sadness or fear, like losing a mother, or that could be anger, like being told you can't, you can't have these privileges or something, like a kid. And there's different like chemistry that drives us. So yeah, it's interesting to hear how these kind of thrust you into becoming the version of yourself that you are now. Do you think that anyone can do what you did, or do you think there's like some special, like, do you think it's rare to be an entrepreneur? Because some people say, like, not like Becky actually earlier today, I've heard this many times. I'm curious what your thoughts are. Do you think anyone can be an entrepreneur, or do you think it is like the rare few?
Some people are better off being in a job. Some people are gonna be the best CEOs, CTOs, climb the ladder, and sometimes your impact is there. But then there is a rare bleed of people who have a calling. Like your name has a label on it. David, there's a path for you if you choose to take it. And I do think the entrepreneurship takes a level of madness. And that madness, you're born with it, or somehow there's space created for the madness to exist, because a lot of it won't make sense. And somehow we go through. I do think that there is people who need to stay in a job, and there is people who will thrive in entrepreneurship because we have the DNA. I do think that you have to have the entrepreneurship DNA, because a lot of things will depend on that, whatever is inside you that says, I want the freedom. Like, you have to want this freedom so much that you're willing to suffer for it. You have to be ridiculous. You have to be obnoxious. You have to be ridiculous. You have to be like, sometimes people look at you and they go, you must be kidding me. It takes a level of ridiculousness that can only come on the inside. And so if you don't feel the fire from inside, it's okay. I think you can make impact anywhere. You can make it in a job, and you can make it as a business owner. I do think, though, that you need to be true to who you are and honor the path that is created for you. I knew at 5 that I wasn't supposed to do the job stuff. I saw my mom. She was a business person. She sold secondhand clothing, and this cost like $1 and $2. And so my mom would say this dress is $3. That was very expensive, secondhand. And someone would come and I would say, it's 5. And the person would pay. My mom would come back and she'd be like, what did you do? I'd be like, I think the dress is $5. And she'd be like, my mom made the most money when she wasn't at the till. And I was 3 or 4 or something like that. I could barely talk, but I knew prices. Like, I knew that if my mom said $2, that thing was worth $4. And my mom was always stunned at how I made more money than her, and I was just a baby. She would say, this thing is $2. I'd be like, okay. I'd look at it and go, I think it's 4. The person would come and say, where is your mom? I'd be like, I don't know. How can I serve you? How much is the dress? And I would go, 4. And the person would say, are you sure you're not going to get in trouble? And I'd be like, not at all. And they would pay the money. My mom would say $2, and then they would haggle, and then I would give her $1, and then I would give her 1.5, and I'd look at her and say, Mom, seriously? And so I think that for me, the entrepreneurship DNA was born in my bone marrow. I think that I take after my mom. And even when my dad was saying you have to go to school and stuff, I was like, okay, I'm a kid, but why can't I just do business? But my dad wasn't the kind of dad that parents softly. It was like his way or the highway. So I was like, oh, okay. I guess I don't want to be in trouble. And I went through an employment, but I knew that deep down inside me, I could do more. Like, customers would come, and in my head, I would say, why can't we solve this problem in 5 minutes? Like, why do we have escalators, SOPs? That guy has to sign 3 days. I'm like, why can't this guy buy this thing today? Like, why do we have to take a week? Like, it was always annoying for me. The processes, the procedures, and I always like, why can't I solve this problem right now? So I always felt like I was more creative for my own sake, more creative than my own to-do list at the job. I always felt like ticking lists. That was like very damning of my abilities. And I honestly always thought that I was just made for more. Like I was made to solve problems in a more creative, free way. And so to answer your question, you either know you're an entrepreneur or you don't. And if you don't know, find where your certainty is not questionable. Because entrepreneurship is a journey that will test you.
Well said. I fully agree. It's like a calling. And to your point with that example as a child at the till, I think that's like something we should remember always, that you, like, everything is kind of a negotiation. You tell people how to treat you, you tell people what to value. And if you don't value it, why should you expect someone else to value it? So just remember that. And once again, the word I'm trying to remind myself of is balance. There is a difference between watching someone on TikTok make $1 million and think I can make $1 million and charge you $1 million and my product is not worth $1 million. So you have to, uh, you know, realize kind of the actual value there, but at the same time, not undervalue yourself. And so you test that in the real world, and you did, and you found out. It's interesting that the innocence of a child showed your mother, who's, I'm guessing, at least twice your age. Well, probably more than that if you're 4 or 5. But, showing her things that she didn't know, that her goods were worth more than she thought. That's beautiful, because that was her daughter, her creation, showing her what she was worth. I love that kind of cyclical, like the way that we all kind of play a part. I could talk to you for another hour, Prima. You have so much wisdom. Really, I think it's great that you have a course, because I was, if you didn't, I'd recommend that you have one. We'll put the link to your school community in the show notes. And for folks that are listening, that's the world's best kept secret. But I see the URL is the world's best kept secret, Orbit. Is there anywhere else that you'd like to point people, Prima, to follow you, to get in touch with you?
The best way to connect with me will always be primajope.com, because I don't know if you're seeing this in this year, or I don't know, in the future, 100 years later, when Prima is no longer Prima. So I don't know. Primajope.com. Right now, school, there's a link that we're gonna put there that leads you to school. School is like the best place that you can. It's like my house. Come have a tea, look around. And I do have a podcast for people who love the yapping and me just telling my stories. I do have a podcast. It's called the World's Best Kept Secret Podcast, where I really talk about, like, how do you build that self-sustaining tiny power brand that pays you now, as we build the brand that no one told us when it was going to take off. Because sometimes brands take 5, 10, 15 years. But how do we make sure that we're getting paid as we build the brand that needs its time? Because your life's work may need time. Some of us, like me, I know that the brand inside me is bigger than Oprah's brand. And maybe there is people who feel like that. My humans are called the best kept secret. The reason they feel like they're the best kept secret is because what is on them, what was pressed in their heart, what was pressed inside of them, feels bigger than what they are doing right now. You can be making $1 million a year and still feeling like a secret, because the potential inside you is much bigger than that. So I know the brand that I want to build, and that is something bigger than Oprah. No. Is that a brand you build in a year? I bet no. Is that a brand you build in 10? I bet no. So as I wait for the 30, 40 years for that brand to come to life, how do I pay my bills? How do I stay in business? I have to figure out how to get paid, which is why my focus is building this tiny power brand that pays you now, that allows you to taste and make mistakes, so that one day you can just get your hands off and scale the thing into that disruptive Oprah brand or Tony Robbins brand or whatever the brand you know has your name on it. Because if we rush this brand, we probably won't do it. But if we give it the time it needs, if we give it the runway it needs, I think the bigger your brand, the bigger the runway you have to build. And so if you know that your brand is big and big, we need the runway. We need to build the mental and financial runway for that brand to take course. We can't rush the brand. This is why there's this simple step called the tiny power brand, which is gonna allow you actually get the money in and your brain to see that things are working, so that when we take off, we can take off big. So I really would like to encourage people to dig into the concept of how do I get paid now, so that I don't have to rush the brand. Because the brand, no one knows. Like, when will you become the next Tony Robbins? Who knows? I don't know. You don't know. But in the meantime, how do we make sure that we're still in the game long enough to see that result of that brand or whatever it is that is going to be your legacy? Let's not cut that lifespan short because we ran out of the mental game or we ran out of the money. Let's allow ourselves to stay in the game. Let's prepare for war, because I think it's war. Let's just prepare.
I love your mindset. Thank you for talking to us today. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Prima.
I really hope the people listening can dig in and see what else you have going. I think this has been one of my best places to be. I am so honored. Thank you for having me. It's been such a pleasure.